Hi, friends. I'm just going to go ahead and read the second half of the book to you right now. Oh, my goodness. You lucky ducks. And lucky me. Next door, Mrs. Watson discovered that Mercy was not in her bed. "Mr. Watson!" she shouted. "Come at once!" Mr. Watson came at once. "Mercy is not here," said Mrs. Watson. "Are you certain?" asked Mr. Watson. "Have you looked under the bed?" Mrs. Watson bent over. She looked under the bed. "She is not there," said Mrs. Watson. Mr. and Mrs. Watson stood together in Mercy's room. "What should we do?" asked Mrs. Watson. "Yippee-o!" "It's that noise again," said Mrs. Watson. Mr. Watson went to the window. Ooh, lots of alliteration in that sentence. Mr. Watson went to the window. He opened the curtain. He looked outside. "Mrs. Watson," said Mr. Watson, "we must call the fire department immediately. It's an emergency." Can you see him up here? Oh, these characters make me happy. Chapter 12. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. In reality, Leroy Ninker was a small thief on the back of a big pig. But in Leroy's mind, he was a cowboy riding a bucking bronco in the Wild West. "Being a cowboy is hard work," said Leroy Ninker. "I need some refreshment." Leroy reached into his shirt pocket. He grabbed hold of a butter barrel candy. He unwrapped it with one hand. He put it in his mouth. There he is, popping it right in his mouth. By the way, notice how Chris Van Dusen, the illustrator, kind of shows a little bit of motion around him. I love little details like that. "Ah," said Leroy Ninker, "this is the life." But just then the pig kicked up her heels. The pig bucked. The pig reared. Leroy Ninker lost his grip. "Yippee!" said Leroy. He flew through the air. "Ah!" said Leroy, and he landed on his back. "Oh!" said Leroy Ninker. Chapter 13. Mercy sniffed. There was that delightful smell again. Butter. Where was it coming from? She looked around. She saw the little man lying on the ground. She sniffed his face. "Hee hee," the little man said. "That tickles." Mercy snuffled the man's shirt. "Hee hee," he said again. In order to snuffle the man better, Mercy sat on top of him. "Hee hee, get off me," said the man. Mercy put her snout in the man's shirt pocket. She snuffled some more. "Oh, hee hee hee," said the little man. "Help!" Mercy found a piece of candy. She bit into it. It was sweet. It was lovely. It was very, very buttery. Mercy sat on top of the little man and chewed. A siren wailed. "Aw, shucks," said the man. Chapter 14. The fire department arrived fast. "We have been to this house before," said the fireman named Ned. "You are right," said the fireman named Lorenzo. "This is the house with the pig." "And the toast," said Ned. "We ate toast at this house." That's probably what I would remember too, as the most important thing. "I see the pig," said Lorenzo. He pointed at Mercy. "The pig is sitting on somebody." "Good grief," said Ned. Ned and Lorenzo got out of the fire truck. They saw Mr. and Mrs. Watson running out the front door of their house. They saw Eugenia Lincoln and Baby Lincoln running out the front door of their house. "This is an interesting job, isn't it?" said Ned. "Very interesting," said Lorenzo. Chapter 15. Officer Tomilello pulled into the driveway of 54 Decawoo Drive. In the yard, he saw 2 firemen, 3 women in nightgowns, and 1 man in pajamas. They were all gathered around a pig. "Is that the same pig I caught driving a convertible?" he asked himself. "It is," he answered himself. "It is exactly the same pig." Officer Tomilello squinted. "Is that pig sitting on top of somebody?" Officer Tomilello asked himself. "That certainly looks to be the case," he answered himself. "Officer! Officer!" shouted Baby. "Come quickly! Mercy has caught a thief!" Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Eugenia Lincoln and Baby Lincoln and Ned and Lorenzo and Officer Tomilello all looked down at Mercy. "Are you a thief?" Officer Tomilello asked the man underneath the pig. "I am," said Leroy Ninker. "I am a thief." "Were you robbing these people?" Officer Tomilello asked. "I was," said Leroy Ninker, "until the pig got involved." "Gentlemen," said Officer Tomilello, "will you assist me in removing the pig?" On the count of 3, Ned and Lorenzo and Officer Tomilello lifted Mercy off of Leroy Ninker. "You are under arrest," said Officer Tomilello. "It's that pig you should be arresting," said Eugenia Lincoln. Leroy Ninker stood with his cowboy hat in his hand. He looked down at his feet. Oh, goodness. Look at the illustration here. What do you think? What kind of expression does he have on his face there? "Oh, officer," said Mrs. Watson, "the thief is so tiny. Shouldn't he have something to eat before you arrest him?" "Maybe he needs some toast," said Ned. "With a great deal of butter on it," added Lorenzo. "Toast," said Officer Tomilello. "Who needs toast?" "Why, everyone needs toast," said Mrs. Watson. "Even cowboys," said Leroy Ninker. Mercy pricked up her ears. Toast? Butter? At last! She headed off for the Watsons' kitchen, and everyone followed her. Chapter 16. The next morning, the front page of the newspaper read, "Pet pig captures thief, sits on him until help arrives." "She is a porcine wonder," said the pig's owner, Mrs. Watson. Oops, that was not with an accent. "She is a porcine wonder," said the pig's owner, Mrs. Watson. "She is a very, very brave dear," said Mr. Watson, husband of Mrs. Watson and proud co-owner of the pig. "She is a sly pig," said the Watsons' neighbor, Eugenia Lincoln, "and there are things with her are never as they seem." Baby Lincoln, sister to Eugenia Lincoln, remarked that the most interesting things seem to happen when one has pie right before bed. "The pig did capture the thief," said Police Officer Bert Tomilello. How it happened, I am not certain, but did it happen? It did." Fireman Ned Fortune and Lorenzo Wiz were also at the scene. They both agreed that the pig had some amazing abilities, and those are the exact words they used. They also pointed out that Mrs. Watson made excellent toast. The thief, Leroy Ninker, is interested in reforming himself. That means changing himself. He would like to become a cowboy. The pig had nothing to say, but she seemed very pleased with herself. Okay, friends, that is the end of our book. And just as we learned last time, Kate DiCamillo lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Chris Van Dusen lives in Maine. Okay, friends, it was fun to share another Mercy Watson book with you. Tomorrow, or the next book I read, is a one-story kind of thing. It's one book, no chapters, and we'll just read the whole thing all at once. Okay? Thanks for listening. Bye.